They see me rolling, they hatin'. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Summer is here, and I'm celebrating with a slew of special Superman videos all season long. Today I'm taking a look at the Standard and Platinum Edition Page Puncher's Ghost of Krypton Brainiac. Huge thanks to McFarlane Toys for making this video possible by sending me these figures to review. Starting off with the packaging, and there's no difference between the two of them on the outside. That is, of course, except for this Platinum Edition sticker. Both Brainiacs come in all plastic clamshells. Names and logos down here. I still think this is where the Page Puncher's logo should go, but I think I'm done beating that horse. Down here is the UPC for those searching for Brainiac in stores, and on the back the included comic book cover provides some very chilling artwork. Out of all the figures from the Ghost of Krypton wave we've looked at so far, this cover is my favorite. Lots of menacing techie detail throughout, and this might just be the most sinister looking I've ever seen Brainiac. Well, except maybe for this. As I say every time, I really do feel like the name of the toy line does need to be easily visible for shoppers. And while clamshells don't provide a lot of collector friendliness because of the comic, I do get why they use them. Factoring all that in, and for packaging, I'm giving Brainiac 4 points. Moving on to presentation, and before we can dig in, this robot has some assembly required. That said, and real quick for those who might want to use this as a more superpower style Brainiac, here he is without all the accoutrement. First things first, we're going to add this pincer arm. Basing it off the cover artwork, I assume it goes here. Good to know, Brainiac's got a built-in grab it. Next up, and I'm putting the tentacle here, based only on symmetry, and here's where I'm putting this little pincer. Little pincer being Brainiac's rap name. They see me rolling, they hatin'. The next tentacle I'm putting here. And lastly, this is my strong hand. Fully assembled, and this is a very cool, very creepy piece with lots of details to get lost in. And to some extent, I imagine you could probably configure some of those spare pieces however you want. Next, I've got to do it all over again for the Platinum Edition. Don't worry though, I decided to do that one through the power of jump cuts. Fully assembled, and we can see that these figures share the exact same body, just with different color schemes. The only thing that's different about them is that each one has its own unique head sculpt. The standard version has this insidious robot skull. There's a bit of a sadistic grin to it. I really like the painted glow of the eyes and that Brainiac logo in the forehead, and the scalp has that classic Brainiac honeycomb pattern. As creepy as the robot version is, this one, however, is pure nightmare fuel. Those glowing eyes are popping out of his head like Judge Doom, and overall it reminds me of the test footage of the unused Green Goblin mask from the first Spider-Man movie. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, here you go. As a consumer of McFarlane Toys going back to the 90s, this is the kind of monster madness I look for. Going back to the standard issue, and that silver body really shows off all the different tech details. There's all sorts of little textures and panels. The pistons in the leg remind me of the Terminator, and there's just enough fuchsia detail to stand out. One thing I like is how the arm lengths are different, giving it this cobbled, asymmetrical feel, and in this color scheme it feels bug-like, as if Brainiac is some kind of humanoid mantis. Nice dry brushing, by the way. Honestly, I could probably spend an hour going over all the little details of these guys. Suffice it to say, for presentation, I'm giving Brainiac 5 points. Moving on to posability, and with these proportions, we're obviously in for something a little bit different than usual. Additionally, just to make my life easier, I'm going to be using this figure for most of this section. From the top, and based on the way the head moves, I assume that it's a dumbbell joint. Brainiac can look up this high, and down this far. I'd call this a tilt, but it's really more like a spin, and he can also look side to side. Moving down, and both arms are on swivel hinges. They can raise this high, which as you can see is different from side to side. No trouble with rotating forward and back, and then this part acts kind of like a bicep swivel. We see that on both sides. Once we get down to the elbows, this is very interesting. It looks kind of like a traditional double elbow over here, but then we look inside and we can see it's a bit different than usual. It's actually a double swivel hinge. It can twist here, it also twists at the forearm, and it bends like this. Same thing with this side. Now as long as we're on the right, there isn't any articulation in the hook, but here we have swivel balls. Just like any other DC multiverse, they can turn and hinge either either up and down or side to side. Moving to the middle, and all of Brainiac's torso articulation is accomplished by a ball joint in the waist. Thanks to this pointy bit, he can't really arch back all that far, but he has a surprisingly good hunch forward. He also has quite a bit of tilt, and of course twist. Moving down, we have more swivel balls for the hips. That said, just like a regular DC Multiverse, there are detents in there. Forget kicking, Brainiac can spin his legs pretty much 360, and they can split this wide. That said, and just like the bicep, there is also twist in the hip. I actually thought they were solid at first, but with a little bit of heat, I was able to get them to loosen up. Both knees are double jointed and can bend this deeply, and at a full bend, you'll notice these detents. No toe articulation this time, but I'm okay with that because these feet are really tiny. That said, I haven't had any trouble standing them on them. Fortunately though, they can swivel, hinge, and pivot. Of course, lest we forget that this Brainiac has a few extra appendages to play with. Similar to the other arms, and this grabber is on a swivel hinge. This allows it to turn and bend. Not only that, but it even has its own bicep swivel. Otherwise, the two tentacles can only turn in place. Same with the smaller pincer and the little alien queen hand. Whether or not these are the best articulated DC figures McFarlane has ever made, they're definitely the most. With so many interesting movable bits and bobs throughout, for posability, I'm giving Brainiac 5 points. Moving on to playability, and Brainiac doesn't come with any figure-specific accessories exactly, but as far as I'm concerned, each one of these extra moving pieces do add to the play value. Not only that, but just like I speculated in the beginning, you can mix and match all the parts to make your own unique configurations. In other words, if you wanted to army build a few of these, you could make it so that no two of them are exactly alike. Personally, I think that adds a lot of value. Additionally, as usual, Brainiac comes with a trading card and a figure stand. Again, it's mainly just a synopsis of the Ghost of Krypton story, but we also find that story in the pages of the Ghost of Krypton comic. This one is part 4 of 4, and I am so happy that each character now gets a comic of their very own. And hey, looks like he's supposed to be army built. Besides, playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting with the Man of Steel, and here's the Ghost of Krypton Superman all suited up. But for a general showcase of McFarlane's standard Superman bodies, and here's Action Comics 1000, Hush, whose cape is threatening to knock Brainiac over, the extremely swole Return of Superman, the not quite classic DC Classic Superman, and Old Man Superman from Crisis on Infinite Earths. Boy howdy do I hope that they use this body to make a Fleischer version. That said, and just because I'm a curious boy, here we have Henry Cavill. For the other Superman of this wave, and here's Val Zod. I thought I'd leave the armor off this time so you can see the regular costume underneath. But for just a few other members of the Superman family, and here we have Steel, Con-El Superboy, and the Target exclusive gold label Supergirl. Shifting over to some Superman villains, and here we have a very much alive and not at all ghostly General Zod. Next is Lex in his power suit looking very superpowersy next to Brainiac. Here we have Rebirth Bizarro, the Bat Zorro 2-pack Bizarro, Mongol, the ruler of Warworld, and the Doomsday 2-pack Megafig. But for the most important villain comparison, and here they are with the Injustice 2 Brainiac. Side by side, and you can definitely see how the Page Punchers version would work as drones for this guy. That said, for one that I'm curious about, and here's the Warhammer 40k Necron Warrior. I use this figure in my collection as a substitute for Metallo. That said, I do feel like these work very well together. Out of curiosity, I decided to try a head swap. The peg is too short, so you can't actually click it into place. It could also be argued that the head is too small for this body, but if you were determined to turn this into a more traditional robot Brainiac, you absolutely could. For a relative scale comparison, here are our Brainiacs with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And as always, here they are with Stealth Iron Man. Norman Osborn, is that you? Whether you want to use this figure as Brainiac himself, or army build them as Brainiac drones, these figures are a lot of fun. For playability, I'm giving Brainiac 5 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. At $25 a pop, army building these guys would be a bit expensive, but if you can, I would recommend getting a couple. That said, if all you can get is one, it's still more than worth it. I really wish that the Platinum Edition was more widely available so that more collectors could enjoy it, but whichever version you get, you're gonna have a good time. For price, I'm giving Brainiac 5 points, averaging out to a grand total of 4.8 out of 5. Huge thanks again to McFarlane Toys for making this video possible by sending me these figures. Sound off in the comments below and let me know what you think of them. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.